So this video is going to be about Rudolf Hess and his infamous flight to Scotland. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of get into it now. Well, Hess, famous guy, he was basically at the beginning of the Nazi regime. Hitler's, by the beginning, right-hand man. There's no such thing as the right-hand man by the end of the regime, but at the beginning, he was right there with Hitler. He joined the party in 1920, shortly before or even around the time Hitler did, and was at the beer hall push. He was later imprisoned with Hitler at the name is Landsberg prison for 9 months, and was actually his cellmate. So when Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, what he really did was dictate Mein Kampf to Hess, and Hess would write it. So it is Hitler's words, but Hess's typing. Anyway, the flight. On the night of May 10th, 1945, this Scottish farmer, David MacLean, went out to his little farm and saw this plane. And this parachutist had crashed. There was fire, kind of chaotic. He went up to this parachutist, said, "Hey, are you okay? Who are you?" Parachutist said, "Hey, I'm Alfred Horn." "Yeah, I'm just Alfred Horn. Can you take me to your local authorities? I need to speak." Not with the manager. "I need to speak with the Duke of Hamilton." Turns out this little Alfred Horn was actually Rudolf Hess, as you can probably guess. Well, Hess wanted to have a mission of peace. He knew Hitler was planning on invading the Soviet Union, and therefore kind of wanted to sort things out with Britain prior to this. And the timing is just really suggests this. Although I'm going to get into a bit more of why he did this in a bit. So the flight was kind of a bit weird. The first part is there's just theories about the flight itself. The fun ones, and not the fun ones, but the most interesting ones with the most evidence backing them up. I'm going to get into them in a bit. The weirdest one by far is that it was not Hess himself who had flown the plane. It was another guy, like a body double, which I think is incredibly stupid. Well, the flight. It left an airfield near Munich around just before 6 p.m. and flew all the way to Scotland to around 10:30 p.m. He was planning on landing at Dungavel House, but crashed 12 miles prior to reaching... Sorry about that. Prior to reaching his destination, because he had basically run out of food. This Dungavel House, sorry about my dog, was the home of the Duke of Hamilton. No relationship whatsoever to Alexander Hamilton. Different guy. Well, this Duke of Hamilton guy was quite a powerful figure, and basically a possible way for Germany to make peace with Britain. So has okay, big brain moment. I'm going to go to the Duke of Hamilton and try to make peace. However, he thought he's a logical guy. He's going to want to make peace with us, right? Well, no, Hamilton was loyal to Britain, and he wasn't even at this Dungavel House. He was at a Royal Air Force (RAF) base, so he wasn't even there. Well, when he got to the local authorities, he confessed his identity. He's like, "Hey, I'm Rudolf Hess. I am Hitler's right-hand man. I am basically second in line to the succession of Germany," which, by the way, it goes Hitler, Goering, Hess. That kind of changes later on. By 1945, it's completely different. But 1941, Goering, Hess. well, he's like, hey, I'm Wolf Hess, and I am a really powerful Nazi. I came here to seek peace. However, I don't have Hitler's approval, but, Hitler didn't send me. It's me, it's Hess. I'm kind of powerful figure, right? Yeah. He was denied a meeting, and because he had said he had not been sent by Hitler, he was denied certain diplomatic privileges, so he can enjoy certain privileges that would have been given to him if he had been there on an official diplomatic mission. Hess was imprisoned, and then he was fed up because he had not been treated with the respect that was expected by him. So by June 16th, 1941, just a month after the whole thing, he tried to commit suicide by jumping down a flight of stairs, which he did. But he wasn't successful because he died quite a while after this. He spent the rest of the war in British hands, British custody. He was briefly spending time in the Tower of London. And at one point, he was given this car. He could go around this area. Obviously, area confined to British soldiers. He wasn't allowed to roam free, but he was given certain freedoms, as well as from time to time being monitored by British intelligence and psychiatric checkups. And you think, oh wow, how nice of the British to check up on him mentally, right? No. It was basically to find out what was going on inside his head and why would someone follow the Nazi ideals? Why? They were basically using him to find out inside information on the Nazis, information regarding their ideology and why would someone follow them rather than military information. Because if Hitler had not sent Hess, why would he know anything about the military? He would then be transferred to Nuremberg in October 1945, months after the official surrender of Japan, months after Hitler's suicide. And he was there. He stood trial with other prominent Nazi figures, including Robert Ley, Hermann Göring, and Albert Speer. And very much alike Albert Speer, they were imprisoned in Spandau. Hess himself spent 46 years as prisoner number 7. Speer, he got released, he said this in the video, he got released after 20 years. He served every single day of his sentence. But Hess was given a longer one, maybe because his increased power or whatever. I don't understand why he was giving a longer sentence, but maybe because he didn't apologize. Speer did, Hess didn't. But Hess wasn't involved in the later parts of the war, which was the parts that they had mostly tried, so I don't know. Anyway, he was prisoner number 7, and he was the only prisoner at Spandau for over 20 years. 20 years. Because, this makes sense, he was at Spandau for 40 years, like I said, 46. But Speer he got convicted in 47, got released in 67 after 20 years, and like most of the other Nazis, released in 67 and in 87, has committed suicide at the age of 93, which is quite impressive, if you ask me. He hanged himself in August of that year. Some say, including his own son, that was a murder. They just wanted to get rid of him, and he got silenced. But I don't know. It could have been suicide, but again, why now, after 46 years, why commit suicide now? He could have done so much earlier. I don't know. He was the only prisoner, so it's just basically solitary confinement, must have been pure torture. So I think it was, I mean, you could argue both ways. Well, the flight itself, when Hitler and other Nazi officials in Berlin heard of this, they were shocked. They did whatever they could to dissociate him from the Nazi regime. This guy who had basically betrayed Nazis. The propaganda ministry said, hey, this guy Hess, yeah, he's suffering from mental disturbance and hallucinations. What does that say about the regime that employed him many years prior to that? Joseph Goebbels himself, he feared that Hess would he would go with that, and then it would be used to damage German morale. In his diary, because like I said, Goebbels had kept a little diary, and he wrote on May 14th that how could such a fool, be second to the Fuhrer? He was incredibly jealous. Goebbels always was jealous. If you want to find out more about Goebbels, watch my video I did on him a few days ago. So. Well, like I said at the beginning, Hess was quite powerful right at the beginning of the Nazi party. Not regime, but party. Then from 1920 when he joined to 1941 when he deserted, his influence had gradually been declining. So you could say that this whole flight was in order to try and gain more influence. Said basically go to Hitler and say, hey, look, I got us peace with England. But because he deserted and then got nothing, didn't work. Only served to advance Martin Bormann's political career. Bormann, I mean, I hate all the Nazis, right? But Bormann, I just hate the most. He's just so manipulative, like all of them, but I just find it really gross and really, I can't stand him. Like I said, I hate all of them, but it's just Bormann especially, I just want to. Anyway, let's forget that and continue with the video. Now, here's where it gets kind of tricky. Was this an act of treachery? Was this an act of betraying Germany? Or was this an act with Hitler's support? Who knows? Well, there's a theory that says Hitler knew of this plan. He had actually, I'm not saying he had sent Hess, but Hess had informed Hitler of this, and Hitler had not opposed. I'm going to pronounce his name, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but Karl-Heinz Pinch, I probably butchered that, but Karl-Heinz Pinch, which was Hess's adjutant, handed Hitler a letter from Hess the morning after the flight. And Hitler received the letter and read it calmly. Some other reports differ from this, but yeah. And apparently there had been a prior arrangement with the British, so the British were also informed. Because they wanted either a military alliance with the British, or at least a neutralization. Either ally themselves with England and Scotland, or prevent them from being a pain, prevent them from interfering against Germany. Other evidence suggests, this is Soviet evidence, suggests that, yeah, Britain knew, they were in on it, but it was basically duped Hess. They tricked him. Stalin says that the British tricked Hess into going to Scotland to trap him. If that theory is true, it means that the British did not know the party hierarchy and they did not know that Hess's power had declined massively by this point. And this whole theory was extracted from Pinch under torture, so I don't know to what extent it's true, but I don't know that theory. Maybe not, but the fact that it was extracted under torture makes it a bit shady. Well, Speer he collaborated with Hess prior to the war, even 1933. If you want to learn more on Speer, I also did a video on him a few days ago, so check that out if you want. Well, Speer claimed that Hitler, when he knew this, he heard about this Hess adventure, was furious. Therefore, the other account saying that Hitler was calm, Speer claimed he was furious, but not because Hess had betrayed him, but basically because he was afraid Churchill would use this to say that Hitler wanted to make peace with England and therefore lose Japan's support. Okay. Speer, you have to be careful with him. He was trying to save his ass. He was deemed a good Nazi. I explained that whole term in the other video. But he wrote this in his book Inside the Third Reich. He basically claimed that Hitler, when he heard this, hoped Hess would crash and die to prevent what I said about Churchill claiming Germany wanted peace. Speer could perfectly well have been covering any tracks and painting Hess in a better light than he had actually been. So who knows? I think Speer says you have to take with a pinch of salt. I'm not sure how trustworthy it is. Speer also claimed that Hess had confirmed his appearance, his idea had come to him in a dream and hallucinations, and that he wanted to forge an alliance. I do believe that part, because Hess was suffered from a lot of mental issues. The guy was crazy. He was crazy. So I completely believe it was his own idea who just, maybe in a dream, Hitler had told him, do this. And he had gone and done that. Who's to say if the actual Hitler had told Hess to do it? Who knows? Well, there's some evidence saying that that this whole thing, apart from the dream Hess had, was a British plot to trick Hess. But there is some evidence. Not a lot. There's no official records. There's no official no official statements claiming that, oh yes, we're going to trick Rudolf Hess into coming to Scotland and we're going to trap him, we're going to get Hitler to. There's nothing like that. The most probable option, if this was actually true, it was probably a way for the British to prevent an invasion by the Germans. Because don't forget, by 1940, the whole battle, either of Britain or for Britain, I think the terms are interchangeable in this case, with the whole Blitz had happened in 1940. So an invasion by the Germans kind of looked possible. His advisor, again, I am going to butcher this, Albrecht Haushofer. Well, he was his advisor, and they found letters from him saying in contact with the Duke of Hamilton in 1940. So if not for Hess himself, his advisor had contacted Hamilton. So was there possible contact with the British? This whole operation idea was kind of dismissed by officials because, I mean, you can't prove Hess's involvement. Yeah, the advisor was in contact. What about Hess? Is there any document from Hess formally contacting the Duke of Hamilton? Not really. There's also possible correspondence between Hess and George the Sixth of England. Possible correspondence. So who knows if it's actual. And I mean, again, the whole theory of Britain trying to trick Hess, there's no real evidence saying that Britain would fight dishonorably. Britain was planning on fighting the regular way, not tricking this Nazi official into winning the war for them. I don't know. Hess himself, if this was true, he knew all the British involvement, and if when he offered the peace, Hess believed that the British believed the offer was genuine. So even after he told them about the offer, they're like, oh yeah, totally. We're going to tell this to our officers. Yeah, 100%, we're going to make peace. Yes, totally. And Hess bought it. Yeah. Brits thought, actual British thought at the time was that Hess had come to this whole initiative on his own. He had not been sent by Hitler. So, again, he was now granted diplomatic privileges. And also, even if he had been granted diplomatic privileges, you'd think they would let him go. So the fact that no actual Nazi patrol or army came to rescue him kind of shows. And overall, Hess had complete free will over what he did, but he really had no authority over this. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So now the question is, was Hess acting on his own? Was Hess acting on behalf of Hitler? I honestly think he was acting on his own. Maybe Hitler was informed. He was pissed. But it's like, hey, fine, he'll probably die. Nothing's gonna happen. He's not dumb enough to give anything away. Sorry, got too close. He's not smart enough to give anything away. No, he's not dumb enough to give anything away, and smart enough to keep information, and then when he comes back to us, tell it. Also, but the fact that Hess had been left out of the inner circle wasn't that worrying because he didn't know that much. Had other figures like Goering or Himmler been been imprisoned by the British, that would have been worse. So honestly, I think it was Hess's own idea. Then the next question is, was it an act of betrayal to Hitler and Germany, or was it an act of patriotism? Well, both. Hess was acting in what he think was Germany's best interest. He was looking to neutralize the British threat. So, yeah, he was acting on Germany's behalf, but he had no real authority to do this. He had not been given proper authorization by Hitler. So it was kind of treason, but not to damage Germany. It wasn't to plan an invasion of Germany. It wasn't to aid the British in the war, but rather to prevent further war. and he failed. So that was it. That's just basically Hess's flight to Scotland. I don't think there's much else. It's kind of a weird flight. When I first heard of this, I was really confused. Like, why would Hess do this? And then I read into it, and it does make sense. But I think they could have done it better. And had he actually reached the Duke of Hamilton, maybe he had gotten something. I'm not sure. He could have attempted to contact someone else in the British Parliament or British Army, but not what he did. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and yeah, there was no problems with the video this time, so that's good. Anyway, thank you for watching.